Hey yeah folks, this is Shantron here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a build I call the Rotfire Fang. This is another one of the early game builds. So I looked around the internet and I saw a lot of endgame builds using endgame items, and other builds that only came together at like level 8 or half the way through the game, which is sweet, but I also want to be powerful early on, and maybe you do as well. So in that case, this might be for you. So what I want to do with these builds is use only items that you can get in or before the growth, and as you can see, you can get quite strong early on. This build specifically is focused on dealing as high consistent damage as possible. I think the maximum in a round, no crits, is around 83, no special arrows, nothing like that. And that's pretty decent at level 3, I'd say. So in order to get to that point, we of course have to use some minor exploits. Specifically here, we are using items that you cannot readily get unless you do a couple of shenanigan things, like the permanent flame plate and the makeshift bow. I'll show you how to get these items at the end of the video. For now, let's just go over the build and how it plays. It's pretty simple, to be honest. It's a level 3 rogue. Take the subclass thief to get another bonus action. Since you're using this permanent flame plate in your offhand attacks are quite strong. And another bonus action means another offhand attack. I'm using Astarion for the build for his Vampire Bite ability. This means he gets the happy debuff, the happy buff, which gives him +1 to all attack rolls. Since he's attacking 3 times per turn, that's a quite nice buff to have. For the stats, strength 16, dexterity 16, constitution 14, and the rest doesn't really matter. I've chosen a little higher wisdom, because better saves, I guess. You could swap around the strength and the charisma and go for another minor exploit to use a warlock's bound blade in order to use charisma to your attack stat for your offhand to hit. But I'm not doing that here, and I would actually suggest you keep the strength because jump distance is quite nice. And also, since you have extra bonus actions, being able to shove is also not that bad. For our Elven cantrip, I have chosen Mage Hand because Mage Hand is an amazing spell. Make it throw healing potions at you or bombs at the enemy, or make it push around people so they get into position, and you'll see why. Good. We are using the Elixir of the Colossus as our elixir. We could have gone for something else here, but I think the extra 1d4 damage on each of our 3 attacks that are quite likely to hit is going to mean that this is going to be the better one. Also, I don't want to use Bloodlust on all of my characters. As for our other buffs, it's pretty basic. Protection from poison, Mage Armor, Longstrider, and 8, just the usual sort of camp buffs. Mage Armor, of course, because we aren't using armor. If you're using this build on a Gith like Lacel, you could skip the Mage Armor and go for Medium Armor instead, but then you'd miss out on the happy buff. I'm also using Warding Bond from Gale. The sweet thing about doing it with Gale is that Gale keeps healing, so you can take damage. As long as you don't take too much in a turn, he won't go down. When he's not in the party, he's constantly healing because of how the game is made. And we might as well utilize that, right? So he's a cleric. So the build plays like this. We want to use our main action in order to fire off a ranged sneak attack, either by clicking this button or just by firing off any ranged attack with the correct reaction set here. Just check all of them once labeled sneak attack. You can even use a special arrow. If you have advantage, or if there is a friendly engaged with the enemy you're firing on, you will be able to do the sneak attack in that case. After you have fired off your ranged sneak attack, you want to dip into melee for your offhand attacks. You have 2 offhand attacks with your permanent flame blade for a lot of damage, hopefully fire damage. And at that point you're probably stuck in melee if the mob isn't dead, and you will stay there with your melee weapons out until the next turn. If it moves away, you get your attacks of opportunity using both of your weapons, which is pretty sweet. Just remember to always have this dual wielding toggled here. And if the mob still isn't dead next turn, you might need to take your offhand attacks before to kill it, and then you can move out of range again in order to shoot. If you get stuck in melee, you can still do a main hand attack action. It's important that you have a finesse weapon here, otherwise you won't be able to sneak attack with your melee weapons. These are using strength, so they won't count, they're not finesse. It means that you will lose out on a full +1d10 necrotic damage, so try and get out of melee. Your ranged attack is better, but it's not that bad in most situations. Yeah, so that's basically it for the build. A couple of pointers in the end here. Because it's a rogue, you get expertise, which means, of course, that you can set up your character to be pretty decent at like sleight of hands, and as you can see here, I've also chosen athletics to be better at shoving in case I need someone to do that. Extra bonus actions also means more shoves. In certain cases, it's better to shove someone off a cliff than attack them, even if you are dealing quite a bit of damage. If you are into Illithid Powers, which you wouldn't be at this point, but a little later maybe, you should take a look at the ability drain. This build specifically is very good for this thing, because you can choose which attack to do first. If you start off with a melee attack, you will drain their strength, making them less likely to hit in case they're strength users. And if you start off with your ranged attack, you might be able to lower their armor class for easier hit with the other ones. So keep that in mind. It's a very decent option. Lastly, we just need to show you how to do all of the exploits, and that's it for now. Okay, so in order to get this Makeshift Bow, you need a couple of items. You need the Scroll of Animate Dead, any corpse, and a character with a ranged weapon equipped, in this case, Lae'zel. The Scroll of Animate Dead you can get from the little halfling druid in the grove. You can keep resetting his item stash by leveling up a character, or by long resting. You can do partial rests without problem. The corpse you can just find outside of the grove from the grove fight, and any ranged weapon will do. So we use the Scroll of Animate Dead to cast Animate Dead Skeleton, that's important, on the corpse. Once the corpse has turned into a skeleton, we can mark the skeleton. You will see it has an attack here with +1 d10 necrotic damage. If we open the inventory, it will have a preview button in the bottom of the screen. If I click this and immediately go to grab the bow, you'll see I now have a bow here. I can then navigate to the character that I want to have the bow equipped, in this case Lae'zel. Open her inventory and simply drop it on her ranged weapon slot. That will switch out her ranged weapon for the ranged weapon the skeleton had. So that is how you get the Makeshift Bow. Okay, so in order to acquire the Flame Blade, what we have to do is speak to Withers. Hey Withers man, it's been a while. Recruit a hireling. Boom. I like to use Danton, he's a druid already. Easiest with a druid, because what we need to do is take a druid and get it to level 3. Level that up quickly. Judges doesn't matter, as long as you get to level 3, that's fine. For prepared spells, the relevant spell here is Flame Blade. And we accept. Then we cast the Flame Blade spell. And while this spell is active, we go and talk to the guy. And I have no more use of this hireling. Yes, return it to the field plane. There he goes, bye-bye. And then we go and re-recruit the same hireling. Recruit a hireling. It's important here that you choose the same one, Anton in this case. You will notice that he still has the Flame Blade in his hand, but this is not the same Flame Blade as before. There are a couple of different things about this one. First of all, it's permanent now. That's the most important part. It can be moved to any other person, and it no longer scales off of his caster stat. It now scales off of strength. So you can switch this to any character, in this case Lae'zel. You see, we just keep doing this to get more. So we've gone over the builds, how it plays, and how to get the items that you need for it. That should be it. So thank you for joining, if you have been. I've been Chandran. You've most definitely been awesome. Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And bye-bye.